What is up, everybody? Jester here, and in the last few videos I've showed you some of the best base places on the map in Conan Exiles when it comes to gear, weapons, thralls, resources. Today we're going to be shifting gears a little bit. We're going to be talking about sorcery and locations for portal bases. Now, I'm not going to be doing a comprehensive sorcery thing, and there's plenty of information on that out in the world. What I'm going to do is show you how to find some of the harder to get resources to continue that journey, and then again where we're going to set up these portals and the cost of doing so. I'm also going to show you a little design that I use that's really basic, it's very low profile, and very simple. It doesn't cost a whole lot to build them, and you can have these portals in the spots you need them, no problem. We got a lot to talk about today, so let's get into it. Even from my first video, I told you folks to be farming these sorcerers, and there's a good reason for that. They drop these satchels, and sometimes you're going to get a sorcerer's map, spell pages, notes, even access to an iron truncheon before you can craft one. But we're here for the sorcerer's map today, and it's going to be leading you to a specific spot on the map, and that's going to be the E5 grid. Here we're going to find a cave that's called Shaleback Hollow. Now, I'm going to caution you guys, these guys hit really hard. You can do this on day one, but the problem with that is that you're gaining corruption in this cave. If you don't have access to a dancer or a dancer of your own, it's a little bit tough to get rid of that, so be cautious. Once you reach the end of the cave, however, we can now pick up our Tome of Kurak and we can start our sorcery journey. But before we leave, we want to make sure that we go on the other side of the little gully behind that bench and pick up all the loot. There's stuff here that you wouldn't be able to get, and it does respawn, including gold and silver. Now that we have our tome, we can start leveling up at the thaumaturgy bench, and I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that, but it's not a word I commonly use. So the first one's going to be very simple. It's just some fiber and some leather, no real explanation needed. And then you're going to start needing sorcerer's spell pages. So just keep that in mind. You're going to need about 14 of these, I think is the number, as well as some putrid meat and stone. We're not going to really go over that too much. Feral flesh, you guys should know where to get by now, as well as the feathers. If you don't know, go over to the jungle, and there's plenty of birds over there. We also need some savory flesh, shalebacks, gazelles, really easy. The glowing goop. You can go over to Hanuman's Grotto if you'd like to, or you can take the whites up north and be able to get the 10 of those. At this one, we are going to stop. If you are getting zeal for your religious altar, you should be, as a byproduct, getting human flesh, but the volatile gland can be a little confusing. Where I like to go on the map is the M7 grid, and we're going to be walking along the waterline. Now, there are some other spots to find these red salamanders, but I find that they're just in better quantity over here, so you're more likely to get what you need quicker. Just know that you're not going to get volatile gland every time you kill one of these things, but it does drop. If you don't get it at first, just stay at it and you'll get there in the end. Moving on to the next recipe, you can see we need blood and brimstone. These shouldn't be a problem. If you need blood, just put those human parts into a press. And then you're going to need more blood and alchemy base. We've talked about making plenty of alchemy base. The weathered skulls can be a bit of a problem. The easiest way to get these weathered skulls is to have Zath as your religion, or know somebody that has Zath and be able to use the Zath daggers on spiders, because they are going to drop these Zathite bags, which can be a few different things. They can be weathered skulls, it could be ichor, it could be bone, but eventually you're going to get one of these, and it's a super easy way to get through it. However, if you don't have access to that, there's an area between the sinkhole and the arena, almost dead square in the middle, that has a very small little skeleton area here. And sometimes when you harvest these bodies, you can get weathered skulls. It's going to take a few trips going through here to get it, but it should be able to get done. Our next recipe requires demon blood and gray lotus powder. Now, gray lotus doesn't really spawn anywhere, so I like to go to King's Niche, because the enemies here can sometimes have either the flower or the powder on them. Plus, the boss at the end of this little small dungeon drops some of the best heals in the game, so it's a good spot to farm. From there, we're going to go into kind of a rapid fire, because hopefully you guys know how to get the soul essence at this point, as well as the sacrificial blood in a flask. Just know to never throw away demon blood. It comes in handy when you least expect it. From there, it's going to be dragon horn, and that's going to work in conjunction actually with the one after this one, which is going to be the fragments of power, because we're going to find both of those in the unnamed city. The dragon horn specifically on the dragons, and the fragments of power you're going to get from most of the bosses there. I'm going to do a more detailed video on that in the next one. It's already shot, so it's going to be out the next couple of days, so make sure you subscribe and hit the bell if you want to see that. And then we're going to talk about the dragon powder, because we talked about it a little bit in the last video. It takes steel fire, it takes crystal, among a couple other things, but you shouldn't have any trouble getting 10 dragon powder in order to unlock this. And then finally, you're going to need 100 Witchfire Powder, which can be crafted, but you can also farm this from the white up near Mounds of the Dead, and it shouldn't take too long. And also a quick note, this black blood that you're needing for certain ones, if you just scrap these sorcerer spell pages that you're not going to need in the end, you should be able to get plenty of that black blood. Now that we have the Transpatory Stones unlocked, let's take a peek at the recipe. And as you can see, it's pretty simple. Brick, alchemy base, torches. The problem here is going to be silver bars, and we're going to have to address that pretty quick. And that's why our first Transpatory Stone is going to go in the B6 region, right over here by Silver Mine. But that's not the only reason we're here. It also gives us very close proximity to Sepper Maru, and it also gives us really close proximity to this boss character here that you get the ancient rhino horn from. So if you're on the Lu Fei quest line, you're going to need those. So here, you can just come over here and pick it up every once in a while. You'll have plenty of those to go around. Where I chose was just kind of right around the corner here from the silver mine, and honestly, the yields here are pretty good. The results of even just one run in this mine is astounding. Just look at all that stone. That was all pulled out in one visit, and I wasn't even trying to get the stone. You have to get rid of some of that stone in order to get to the silver, which we got 809 nuggets. We also got nearly 4,000 coal and over 6,000 iron. Plus, there was a little bit of brimstone in there as well, so it's just a really good resource spot. And when we start looking at the silverstone and we hit play, you can see that we got 268 bars now cooking. That's over 2.5 of these portals each time we run it. We should only need to run it 3 or 4 times, and we're going to have all the silver we're going to need forever. The next spot may vary for a lot of you, but I like to play as a strength player. So we're heading back to J5 because this is like the ultimate food run for the most part. This area is just stocked when it comes to savory meat. The demonic shaleback over here will give you exotic flesh. There's tons and tons of eggs. And the recipe I'm going to be trying to make is the exotic feast because as a strength player, it gives me plus 15% strength weapon damage. And the third ingredient is going to be dried berries. Those are all over the place as we head back up towards Sinner's Refuge. So this is a full run going all the way there. Another side benefit of this run is if you need to, you can stop here and get all the aloe you're going to need for quite some time. And then, like I said, you just do this run all the way around and through here. And over here, you got even more when it comes to the berries. And also there's another nest area over here. And then you just kind of round this corner, and all of a sudden there we are back at the Sinner's Refuge area. You just get all that stuff, you come over, you start drying your berries, you put the exotic flesh and or your savory flesh into a refrigerator, or you get it cooked. The exotic flesh, you need to have everything though, so make sure you got your dried berries. And usually I get around 70 or 80 eggs, which is going to give me more than a full stack of food, which is going to be good for several game days. And if you do this a couple times a day, you can really start to stock up that strength food. Now, if you're looking for a different type of food because you prefer to be agility, you may want to find a run that works for you. But if you like strength, this is an excellent run. The next area that I really like having a portal somewhere nearby to is going to be the D7 area. And you're going to see a theme here with my portal placements is because we've got multiple things we can do. This one is not just a portal, it's actually going to be my purge base. So I guess a bit of a spoiler alert here. This is kind of the design that I've been going with. We're going to talk so much more about purge design in future videos, but just note that there's also lots of other things we can do here. The den is just over there, and this is actually going to be where we pull our archer from for the purge base. And then we also have great access right here to the beginning of the run that I like to do for my weapons and for the fragments of power and for Dragonhorn and for multiple other things when it comes to the unnamed city. I have that video completely shot. Again, I just have to put it all together. Subscribe to the channel if you want to see that, because this is where we're really going to start playing Conan, is when we get into doing this farming runs and then kind of doing the rotation. I think you guys are going to love it. And this is where, to me, at least everything gets to be a lot of fun. Next up for me is going to be right on the cusp of D and E14, and that's going to be near the Temple of the Frost. And the reason I love it here is because Black Ice is a base game set. You're going to need a ton of black ice if you want to build with it. The temple is where you want to go. Just make sure that you're bringing some good hot food that you're going to be able to eat, or have gear that can withstand it, because it gets really quite cold there in the temple. The other thing you can do is you can come back this way and you can check for star metal as you're coming back. The other benefit of doing this is there's going to be tons and tons of animals here that you can get for fur along these mammoth lines. There's also tons of cats and different things like that. And all the while we're heading back down this way, we are heading right back down towards our base at Stargazers. We just come right back around this corner and then over this way, and all of a sudden we would be back home. So you can see it gets us back to where we're going to go, and it's very useful, not only just for the fur, because you need lots of layered fur anyway, but also star metal. So it's a good way to get on the backside of this mountain where I showed you could get star metal here in the first place. For me, the last mandatory portal that I'm going to put down, and don't worry, there will be a few honorable mention locations, is going to be somewhere in the C8 area, kind of the bottom left-hand corner. And that's because Shattered Springs is very nearby. It's going to have all the brimstone you're ever going to need down there in just a couple of runs. But more importantly, Clail's Stronghold is here. Probably the most difficult dungeon in the game. I'm going to show you here in a couple episodes. It's really not that bad. And I think some people could argue that Wine Cellar is pretty tough, and I won't argue that with you. It's a very tough dungeon. But a lot of people are afraid of this because of the Arena Champion and then the Warmaker's Champion. And I'm going to show you guys, they're not that bad so long as you kind of have a strategy and a good throw. So we can go through there and get all that loot. Some of you would also say, but Jay, there's an obelisk right there that you can teleport in, and that's absolutely true, but not having a portal to get your loot and stuff back out to your main base is kind of a pain to me, so I do like having that portal to get out of here as soon as I'm ready to go. For the honorable mentions, I'm going to kind of rapid fire these. At 05, you're going to run into the Palace of the Witch Queen. You're also going to run into Lufei's spawn point, so it's a very good place to have a portal base nearby, kind of like we have there. And then if you head back to the east, there's going to be tons of birds. There's also going to be a lot of gorillas, so you're going to be able to get feathers and fur. Just a really good run to get yourself back over towards that J5 portal. The next honorable mention is going to be around G7, and that's because El Mariah is right here, and eventually I'm going to show you guys how to solo this and get all the gold coins you're ever going to need, but we're going to have to get gear and some other things first. This also gives you pretty close access to the savannah, where you can find plenty of elephants and rhinos and all kinds of other animals to get all the hides you need for the perfected paddings. You're going to need to craft that higher end gear sets down the road. The final honorable mention is going to be in between E and F10, or New Asagarth. This is a really, really popular location for a lot of people. It's good scenery. It does rain quite a bit, but it is very good scenery. It's nice and green and lush. And honestly, the city itself doesn't attract me that much because we've already got all the thralls that we really need at this point, unless you were looking for a Ymir priest, which does spawn in the city here. The good part about this, though, is there's plenty of wolves around as well as some mammoths. So if you need fur, there is that available around here. But I don't know. This one doesn't really do a lot for me because I just don't need the thralls. If you guys feel that I've left out any particular location, please let me know in the comments and tell me why you think that location that you're talking about is a really good spot for a portal base. But I don't want to leave this without kind of showing you how to do these little designs that are just kind of perfect for these little portals. Making one of these little circle bases is not nearly as difficult as it seems, and I can show you here real quickly how you can make them as big as you really want to. You just have to understand how the pieces fit together. First of all, you start with a square foundation. From there, we're going to put 3 triangles on either side of that square foundation. You just want to make sure that everything is in a straight line when it's all said and done. And then we're going to go back to square foundation, and then it's rinse and repeat until you meet up on the other side. Now that we have our outer circle connected, it'd be really easy to think, oh, square to square, but it's actually the exact opposite of that. If you put a square on any of the ones that you're standing on that are triangles, you're going to end up finding complete success. And you can clearly see there that the triangles are going to fit in real nicely here. So it's really just a easy process. And then of course the middle will be all triangles, and then you just keep following that process all the way around. Now, if you wanted to go a little bit bigger than what you have here, you're going to go the opposite way. So on the triangles on the outside, you would put in a couple of squares and say a couple of squares. And then to fill in the gaps, you would come back with the triangle pieces, and you'd follow that all the way around, and that would get you a slightly bigger circle. Now, one little trick when it comes to building that I do like to do is on the triangle pieces on the outside, I like to put windows, and then on the square pieces on my outside, I like to put regular walls. The reason is when you go to do the roofing, it's going to make this a lot easier visually, because now we're going to have, say, a roof like that, whereas on these other ones with the triangles, we're going to need to use this piece and make sure that it's properly rotated in because it doesn't like to do it to start with. And then we'll put in that piece there, and then we would just follow all that all the way around. The other thing that this building will let you do, you could just put a roof on this right there, but you could also put some walls up here, kind of like I've done on a few of them. And then you could maybe do another layer of roofing going up. It's all kind of up to you, but this is the way that it works. You could make this a giant circle if you wanted to, and I actually did, so stay tuned, because in one of the Purge Base videos, I made a massive monstrosity of a circle for a Purge Base, and I'm kind of looking forward to running it. Hope you guys are too. Hopefully some of you found this information useful, and if you did, don't forget to like the video and subscribe. And again, if you have locations that you think are better than what I'm talking about, feel free to leave the comments, because I'm still learning the game, and I've always said that from the beginning. I'm kind of making content for newer players from a newer player, even though I am kind of approaching 1,000 hours now. I still consider myself to be pretty new, and I've still got a lot to learn. But there are so many fun things that we've got coming up, including the next episode, where we're going to be getting into the actual fights and the routine of going through and getting ourselves geared up, getting weapons, and starting to advance towards that overpowered Purge Base, and I can't wait to get there. But until next time, guys, thank you so much for watching. We'll see you soon. Bye.